Now speaking with Edward Zwick.
Yeah.
Why did you call your company Bedford Falls Company?
If you know the film It's a Wonderful Life,
Yeah.
that's the name of the town, the mythical town
Of course.
where that story is set. I was from the Midwest, and my partner Marshall was from Philadelphia, and we chose not to use either of our hometowns, but chose that mythical hometown that seemed to sum up the feelings we had toward each of the places where we grew up.
So you seem to know the trick of getting your actors award nominations. How do you do it?
I cast movie stars as actors, not as movie stars.
Sure.
And I believe that they and the story are more important to be put forward in the film than I am. The more I become invisible and, in fact, humble myself in front of their abilities, the better the movie is, and consequently, the more they'll be recognized and noticed. I think there are a lot of directors who are self-conscious and believe that a movie is an opportunity to show off and have the audience think about them rather than the story or the actors. I think that's not the tradition that I come from or that I particularly respect.
You've worked with, like, everybody, and it's an amazing list of people. Do you have a favorite actor that you've worked with so far?
Oh, I've had really wonderful experiences. I've made 3 movies with Denzel Washington, and I had a great time with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise was actually a wonderful collaborator, and so too was Daniel Craig, and I had a very close time with both Jake Gyllenhaal and Anne Hathaway, and I've been lucky enough to be with people who are, generous and kind as well as really hardworking.
Right, but was there somebody that you would, like, go for a beer with after you wrapped, or...?
Well, yeah, Denzel and I have essentially grown older together as we raised our families, and our families got to know each other a bit. And I grew very close to Jake and still consider him a friend, although a newer one over the last couple of years. Having that beer is as much a part of the process of directing an actor as is talking about Stanislavski.
What is your favorite part of the process? The directing, writing, or producing?
I think when I'm writing, my favorite part of the process is directing, and when I'm directing, my favorite part of the process is producing, and when I'm producing, the favorite part of the process is writing. I think it's really hard when you're doing it and you think nostalgically of the thing that you're not doing.
Sure, so you're just waiting for the next part to happen.
Yes.
Has your personal view of the process changed over the time you've done it?
It seems to change every time now. My view is really just to try to, hold on to those values that I care most about, which are story and ideas and characters. So I don't think my view of it has changed. I think my understanding of how to go about making that happen has changed. In order to make the last movie, Jake and Annie and I all had to essentially be willing to give up a considerable amount of remuneration so as to do what we wanted to do. But that's maybe as it should be, because artists want to do it, I hope, for the right reasons. It's really whatever it takes to do the thing you most want to do, because there's no amount of money that can compensate for that privilege.
Yeah. What is more fun to shoot, epic battle scenes or quiet character moments?
I think the quiet character moments are more fun. Those battle scenes, you're most concerned about no one getting hurt.
Sure.
And then it becomes a process in which redundancy is really important, and they're endlessly planned and then quickly done in some weird way. And so I would say there's pleasure in having done those things, but not real pleasure in doing them. So the other scenes, give you a charge right away. They're very immediate, often intuitive, and you just sort of let things happen in a very almost improvisational way. And that's really fun, because that's closer to, the experience of the theater and the things in which we were really trained.
But you're one of, the last directors that got to work with, huge casts of guys running on a field,
I know, and you know what? It's sad, because now what you see are little CG figures, millions of them, all of whom look the same, and the audience in some fundamental way knows that they're CG figures. Look, I'm not saying people don't do it well, but there's some weird alchemy that's missing. The theater is premised on something happening in front of you that's real. You know that's a real person.
Yeah.
Given that it's a real person, the possibility of error and the possibility of something not working or happening differently is there's a tension in that. And that's the tension of performance. And when you know somehow that they're all fake, I think it takes that away.
Yeah. What is more fun to work on, movies or TV?
Do you like dogs or cats?
What's the difference between working on them?
TV is very much like the repertory theater. You write it on a Monday and shoot it on a Wednesday and cut it on a Friday, and it's done, and you got to do the next one the next week. It's very much hand-to-mouth and very improvisational. And movies are endlessly painstaking in the preparation, but you're only doing 2 hours. There's some inverse ratio. You're making 22 hours of story in television, so there's no amount of time could prepare properly for 22 hours. similarly, the amount of time you have to prepare for 2 hours seems sometimes too much.
Sure. Yeah, did you and Marshall realize that 30-something was this revolutionizing thing when you were doing it?
Well, not when we did it. I mean, we can see, I think, after the fact that there's a certain legacy that it has. But, you certainly don't set out to do a revolutionizing thing. You set out just to do the thing you're doing.
Right. Why do you think it had that effect on the TV landscape?
I think television hadn't yet come into the realm of the real. I think movies had been there in the 1970s, but TV was behind. All we did was help it catch up. Obviously, it wasn't just us. There were a lot of very talented people who suddenly at that moment were given a chance. We all fed off each other. David Chase did his first show then. It was called, I think, Almost Grown. Glenn Caron did his first show, and a guy named Bill Broyles and John Sacred Young did a thing called China Beach. And there are a lot of those that are somehow not mentioned as often. But we weren't alone being given this opportunity, but I guess it's kind of nice to be recognized for it.
Well, seeing the effect that 30-something did have, even at the time, did that change how you approached Once and Again, or?
I don't know. It's funny. You always feel like you're just solving problems.
Sure.
You always feel like you're just figuring things out one story at a time, one shot at a time. I'd like to say there's some big master plan and some great theory, but I look at Woody Allen's career. He's made 42 movies or something like that, and, some work and some don't, and he just sits down and writes what occurs to him, and he keeps his head down and he keeps his feet moving.
Right, and he doesn't look back, though, do you? When 30-something came out on DVD, were you I'll sit down and watch these?
No. No. I have kids who've yet to have even watched 30-something.
Wow.
Maybe when they're 30-something, they'll watch it.
Yeah, and then they'll connect with it.
Yeah.
Did Quarter Life turn you off of producing content for the web?
Well, we were ahead of the curve. There's beginning to be a financial model that might work, but not even for content of that length.
No.
I know it will be there at some point. We were just a little bit early, maybe a lot early still.
One more question. What has been the most fulfilling film you've made after completion? You look back at it and say, that one worked.
I have to tell you, and I suspect this will be true of every filmmaker that I know, I think the best and most fulfilling movie that you've made is the one you haven't made yet. If you look backwards, I think you feel as if you're stopping.